Hey guys, welcome to the Tim Moen Show. We're doing a live stream. I'm trying to do more live streams. I want to get you guys involved. I want to hear your comments. I want to take your questions. I want to get your feedback. I want you to be part of this conversation. So I'm going to be trying to do more live streams. I'm dipping my toe into that realm a little bit. We're live streaming right now on Facebook on the Tim Moen Show Facebook page. We're doing it on YouTube, and we're doing it on Rumble, and I'm hoping to pick up more Rumble followers. I really want to start migrating over to Rumble, just feel more secure over there. Some of the stuff we talk about on the show is likely to get us canceled, and our guest today is a guy that, of all the guests I have, he's probably the most likely to rustle jimmies and put me at risk of cancellation. So welcome, Manuel. Thank you for joining me and putting me at risk of cancellation.
What means the jimmies? Because
rustling jimmies. I don't know. It's a term that it's one of those 4chan terms. I don't know. I'm letting my age show here. I think it's like getting your panties in a knot or something like that.
It's not a French Canadian expression. I'm sorry.
No. Right. And I should tell my audience that this is a truly Canadian podcast today, because we've got an Albertan and a Quebecer here speaking with the wonders of the World Wide Web, the internet. Thank you, Department of Defense, for inventing the internet. Am I right, Manuel?
I don't know if it's true, but it's true. Let's thank them.
Oh, God bless the government. Am I right? No. Oh, we got a lot to talk about. Now, Manuel, he is a guy I like to bring on when I want a contrarian opinion. He has a heterodox opinion that goes against the flow when it comes to especially foreign conflict. And he reached out to me and said he had some red flags about Javier Milei. Now, I've been up on Javier Milei's nuts. I've been loving this guy. I'm like, he's saying all the right things. He's got the right positions as far as I can tell on most things. But yet, Manuel, you say there's some red flags you see in him. Well, let's talk about that. What are these red flags?
First of all, I want to say that I also love him, and I'm also very glad that he was elected. And just for people to know, if I would live in Argentina, I would have voted for him. No problem about that. So I'm not, an extremist contrarian. I'm able to be nuanced and to measure both aspects. And I mean, I try to take for in account all facts and arguments that are available. So of course, I love that this guy has been elected, and just for the humor show what he does with his chainsaw, and when he speaks, it's absolutely it's a free humor show that for someone who is libertarian, you cannot get better than that. So
very charismatic.
I'm really happy that he's elected. So now, yes, I see a few red flag about him, but first. What we know about him, there's a few things that are there's two categories of things I would like to talk about. The obvious red flag that we can see, but also the consequence of his election for the libertarian ideals, because there's obviously a risk that it could affect, I think, negatively the libertarian movement. So
right.
The red flag that I see is that about, first of all, I never heard him criticizing U.S. imperialism. He openly say that he supports Israel and Ukraine. And let's be clear, I'm not saying that libertarians should support Russia or the Palestinian and the Hamas. Of course not. I think that those two conflict are conflict between group of statist politicians, which for me, put them in both an evil category. In the case of Ukraine, it's obviously an imperialist conflict that goes a lot of, that is it's more a conflict between the United States and Russia than just Russia and Ukraine.
Sure.
So as libertarian, I think we have to be nuanced and consider that all that. So if I see a libertarian politician that advocates to be even an anarcho-capitalist, that go as far as saying that, but says that he fully support Israel and Ukraine, for me, it's a red flag.
Sure, it's like let's wait and see. And Manuel, to be clear, that was the biggest I guess complaints I see about him from the contrarians online, those that are automatically against the next thing, is that he's a Zionist and he's a WEF shill, World Economic Forum shill. Now we've addressed the World Economic Forum stuff before. Here he did a hardcore anarcho-capitalist libertarian speech at a World Economic Forum conference in Panama in 2014. And so the World Economic Forum has him on their website as an affiliate. Okay. Now, if you take the best libertarian in the world and all it takes for other libertarians to throw him under the bus is for the World Economic Forum to put him on their website, well, you can expect to see them put a lot more libertarians on their website, right?
I fully agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, again, just let me finish up my point here. What he did would be equivalent to an evangelical Christian pastor preaching the gospel of Christ at the Church of Satan, right? That's essentially what he did. He went to the gates of hell and preached the message that those guys, above all other people in the world, need to hear. If anyone needs to hear the gospel of liberty, it's globalists, people in the World Economic Forum, people in NATO, people at the UN, people at the Bilderberg Group. So God bless the libertarians that are speaking to these people. So WEF, I don't see any. I mean, in fact, he's anti-globalist. He's said he's against Agenda 2030 and all these other things a bunch of times. But the other complaint I hear about him quite often, Manuel, is that he's a Zionist. And I think it's precisely for the reason you said. He said something to the effect that Israel has a right to defend itself. And he also has said that he admires, I think, Jewish values or something like that. I think there's some rumor that he's contemplating a switch to Judaism as a religion for himself.
Yes.
And if that's all it is, okay, I can see why that might raise a little bit of suspicion. But look, some of the best libertarians, I mean, most libertarian forefathers were Jews. I mean, you had Murray Rothbard, you have Walter Block, you had, I'm not sure if Ludwig von Mises was a Jew, but Hayek was. And I mean, all the great thinkers that we owe our philosophy to, that are the most avid defenders of what it means to be a Western civilization, those come from Jewish people, Jewish disproportionately, right? Now, you could also say that there's a lot of bad ideas that disproportionately come from the Jewish culture.
We could say
but look, there's something about their culture that promotes debate and discussion and whatever. So I don't have any problem with someone say they admire one culture or another. And in terms of Israel has a right to defend itself, okay. Well, if we're hardcore anarcho-capitalists, we could say that no state has a right to defend itself because states are an aggressive thing. But Javier Milei has also said that look, anarcho-capitalism is his preferred end goal, but there's probably a few steps to take between now and then. And it could be, there is a line of thinking in libertarian or even anarchist thought that maybe the nation state is the next progression, that we came out of feudalism and monarchies and different things. And we now have these states, and maybe as moral progress is made. At the same time, we have technological innovations like blockchains and cryptocurrency. The state may be necessary to protect us from other states. We may need to, if we go into a prison, Manuel, join a gang that we would never want to voluntarily associate with for our own protection. So there's an argument to be made that even nation states have a right to defend themselves. So, but he might not have even been talking about the nation state. He might have just been talking about the nation itself, the group of people. A group of people who share a common culture and ancestry have a right to defend themselves from aggression. And okay, can't disagree with that. We can argue about what
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So, okay, but he raised the point, and he's taken a side here very strongly, where a lot of us are like, I need to know the details of a specific action before I can determine whether it's a moral action or not. I don't judge everything collectively like most people do. I judge individuals and individual actions. So I'm going to hold back and have my opinion about specific things, but I need to know more. I need to know details before I can come down on one side of a specific action with specific nameable individuals before anything else. Anyways, so I think we've addressed. I don't know if there's anything else on the Zionist front that.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with what you said, that in the paradigm of nation state, a nation state has the right to defend itself. Last time we talked about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and I said that even though I don't support the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, I consider that Russia was provoked by U.S. NATO. Right. So the idea that a nation state has the right to defend itself, I totally agree with that.
Right. And that's the thing, Manuel, like we're talking about things that people seem to have a difficult time wrapping their head around, how two things can be right at the same time. Let's look at Canada. We had two terrorists in Canada right around the time Harper decided to join Hillary Clinton's invasion and bombing of Libya and overthrow of Gaddafi. Okay, we sent CF-18s there to bomb the shit out of Libya. That decision was made, and then immediately we had two terror attacks, and those terrorists cited that decision to bomb Libya as motivation behind their attacks. Now, does that take away their personal responsibility? No. Does that mean we can't defend ourselves against them? No. Does that mean we can't execute those people for their crimes? No. But what it does mean is that our foreign policy might have contributed to this. Had it not been for our foreign policy, we might not have had those attacks. And so both those things can be true at the same time, that the terrorists can be bad and that our foreign policy might have contributed to provoking those attacks or motivating them, and certainly not protecting us. So those two things can be the same. And it's the same with Ukraine, right? It's like,
yes,
they have a right to defend themselves. They shouldn't be invaded. But also at the same time, hey, could you not provoke Russia so much? All the saber rattling with NATO and yada, yada, right? So
in the case of Israel, Palestine, also, we have to recognize, I think, that the conflict didn't start suddenly on October 7th. It's not like if Hamas suddenly became evil on October 7th and deliberately decided to do what it did. I don't support what Hamas did. I think Hamas is a group of evil people, but we have to put that into the context.
Right.
What Israel has, and I want to be clear. I think that the Jews have a right to live in this area. I think that in 1947 there were a lot of Jews having private property in that area, but I also think there were a lot of non-Jews, Muslim, Christians, and maybe others, Palestinian, that were living there and that were ethnically cleansed or just had to escape and got their land stolen. So Israel, I understand why the people there hate them. Of course, the problem is that it's the collectivist thinking. the non-aggression principle is clear. If I go into your home and that I initiate violence against you, your family, or your private property, you have full moral right to use violence to defend yourself, even if it means killing me. I think we all agree with that. Now, if your neighbor, I don't know, come in your house, destroy, steal, hurt people, and get out, does it give you the right to bomb the whole area? No. And that's the collectivist problem.
Right. And I mean the same arguments that Israel is being, just like Hamas had no right to come in and murder innocent women, children, men, even innocent men didn't deserve to be killed.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And in the most brutal way. Right. And Hamas apologists might say, well, what do you expect? I mean, they're living under oppression, and at some point they have to use tactics that might involve collateral damage, and they might intentionally target collateral damage to get there. But that's the same argument being used to defend Israel's action. Then when it kills a bunch of women and children, it's like, it's doing what's necessary to defend itself and to meet some kind of military aim. So yes, there is a moral difference, and I will acknowledge that. I mean, there's a difference between people who have no remorse or no hesitation at all about murdering innocents versus people who reluctantly murder innocents. That's the difference. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of barbaric, sadistic first-degree murder and just plain old first-degree murder. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's still first-degree murder, but it's worse.
So about Javier Milei, as I say, I love the guy, but when I see him with an Israeli flag, when Israel is committing a kind of almost, I don't know if I can use the word genocide, but what they're doing in Gaza right now is quite very evil, and associate the libertarian and anarcho-capitalist with what Israel is doing right now in Gaza. Yeah. I think it's a very, very bad thing. So,
yeah, it's a little tricky. I mean, but again, I have to admit, I don't know the truth of what's happening on the ground. I don't know what there are for civilian casualties. I don't know how precise Israel is. I don't know. Again, I would have to take a look at individual actions. I don't judge their defense as a whole. I look at individual actions and decide, okay, that was crossing the line. That one wasn't. That was crossing the line. That one wasn't. Based on it was there foreseeable civilian deaths or not in your action, right? How necessary was it for your protection to execute that target? What would have happened if you didn't? I mean, these are the kinds of things that would be answered in a court of law in a just system, but it seems like we throw out the principles of justice as soon as we slap a label on our violence and call it war. And suddenly all those rules are out the window, and we're operating under some different thing called just war theory, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. But I wrote myself a thesis on, or an essay on just war theory, and it's, for me, there's need to be three condition. The cause must be good, the means of doing it must be good, and the result must be good. I mean, the cause, it has to be self-defense, and I don't think what Israel is doing in Gaza, it's just self-defense. I think they also want to conquer the place, because they have done it since and again, it's like it's like Napoleon and the French Revolution. I mean, they were attacked. France was attacked by the rest of Europe. They defend themselves, and after that, they invaded the rest of Europe. So right. It's not an easy situation, because we have many things to consider. But I think Israel, what they have done, I cannot condone. I cannot support that. So
fair enough. Okay, so what else do you see? Any other red flags about Javi?
Well, I know that he said that he wants to make abortion illegal. Look, I understand that many libertarians don't like abortion. I will not. I will not. Attack them for that. Me, I think it should be. I believe in the principle that a woman owns her body, and even if we could make a case that the baby, the fetus, is a living individual, I think that the body of the mother that contain it as a priority above it. And I'm not saying that I like that. It's a thing of nature that I find it sad. But the idea that we're going to use the state to make abortion illegal, I cannot support that. Yeah. I think that if we get rid of the welfare state and that women will have to become more responsible, and in the case of abortion, they're going to have to pay for it. Or in the case maybe of rape, an ideal justice system will force the raper to pay for it and pay reparation. But I know that he's against abortion. It's not the biggest thing that annoy me, but I think that
fair enough. That doesn't annoy me an incredible amount because I can make a case on either side for that. I'm kind of with you. I just don't think there's a violent solution to the problem of abortion, right? And the state is always violent. And what you're dealing with is, like you said, even if we agree that that is a life that is worth protecting, how do you protect it with violence? Like if that mom wants to kill what's inside her or evict it, like, are you going to shoot the mom? Like that's what a law is, right? It's the escalation of force. So there's no way to stop that without killing both mom and baby at the logical conclusion of the enforcement. And so it doesn't protect the baby. I guess you can ban other people from killing that baby, which is probably a reasonable thing to take. But I don't see how you can, if the technology exists, that you can, ban the mom from taking, let's say, the morning after pill or something. What are you going to do? Shoot it out of her hand? Or are you going to, well, like, how are you going to exactly stop that? So I agree. And the other point I make often is that you don't really need to ban abortion in a libertarian society because it's very rare. Because now suddenly, because I've said this over and over again on the show, a libertarian society is a much more socially conservative society naturally, because you have to bear the consequences of your poor behavior, right?
There's no welfare state.
Right. There's no welfare. But more than that, Manuel, it's not just a welfare state. I think even the welfare state I might put it down fairly low on the things that drive family apart and promote things like promiscuity and casual sex and things like that. It is, the state destroys the family in so many ways.
I agree.
You just have to look at family law, for example, in no other, like, a marriage is supposed to be a covenant, a contract, right, with another person. But yet in North America, well, in most civilized societies, quote unquote, you can break that contract and not only suffer no consequences, but have the other person have to pay you for you breaking the contract, for you violating the contract, right? Now, normally in contract law, when I break the contract, there's some penalty I have to pay. And I certainly don't get payments forever from the other person. So it's made breaking contracts, and the most important contracts in society, I would argue, are the family contract you make, because that's literally where society emerges from, the family, from the children that emerge from that. And so if you make it that contract inconsequential and there's no accountability and no consequences for violating it, well, of course it's going to be violated on the regular. And so, look, if we get rid of, if we have fewer broken families, fathers in the homes, there's fewer unwanted pregnancies. That's a fact. There's fewer, there's much less drug addiction. There's much less crime and criminality. All those things go up by a factor of like 400% in fatherless homes, right?
I agree.
And so now suddenly you've taken away you've stopped treating marriage so cavalierly, and and people have to take it seriously. There's going to be some communication. There's going to be some clear parameters drawn up on the relationship. There's going to be some clear understanding of what happens if it breaks up. They're going to be much more solemn occasions, much more thought about, much more planned, and much more careful about who you enter into those relationships with, because they are very consequential. And now you've got much less of the things that lead to unwanted pregnancies and abortion. So I think that the problem of abortion kind of gets taken care of without even having to make it illegal or something like that. But yeah, anyways, I go on the sidetrack there.
I'm pretty sure that, as I said, we would be in a maybe not 100% perfect libertarian society, but if we could reach an almost ideal libertarian society, I'm pretty sure abortion would be reduced like at 80 to 90% less abortion. So
yeah,
the people that are really against it, and there are a lot of people that are against it, but
sure,
agree with us that in the libertarian community, that they don't want to have the state enforce it. So I know that he said that Xavier Milei said he wanted to make it illegal. I just wanted to mention it. The last point I wanted to mention is that he said he wants to get rid of the Argentinian central bank, which I think is great. I don't know if you saw him with a stick breaking a kind of piñata in form of a central bank in a TV show.
I saw that. Yeah,
that was funny. That was really funny.
Yeah.
So and I think it's great that he wants to do that, but he wants to replace it with the central bank of the United States. He wants to replace the Argentinian pesos with the US dollar. But I agree that it will be probably better for the Argentinian people, because the US dollar is probably more stable, or can we say that the rate of inflation of the US dollar is not yet at 140% per year. So, and the US dollar is kind of protected by the US military. So for the Argentinian people, it's a step. I think it's a step in a good direction. I know that he said that he was favorable to Bitcoin and precious metal, but he doesn't really destroy central banking. He just replaces it with another.
Right. Well, and in fairness, Daniel, the Argentinian, I interviewed about Milei. When I brought this up, he said that, look, you have to understand, Argentinians love US dollars, right? They have their savings under their mattress in US dollars whenever possible, because they don't trust their own currency. And this is true in a lot of struggling or developing countries. They prefer the US dollars because in terms of dollars worldwide, it is one of the better ones. It is. Mm-hmm. But Milei has also said that I think this is a waypoint on the way to completely free market in money, right? This is just the first step on the way. So let's hope it's true. I mean, certainly if you had to do something achievable in the immediate term, dollarizing on the US dollar is something achievable and a step in the right direction in the near term. Whether he can actually get us to the goal line or not, that remains to be seen. But
I think that we have to be pragmatic, because we live in a world that we don't just live in a world of abstract ID. So pragmatically, I think that if he would have been against the US dollar, I'm pretty sure he would not have been elected. I'm pretty sure that the US government and all the reach they have around the world, we know that the US dollar and the US government intervene in so many foreign countries, and not just militarily, but they can with covert ops, they can engineer coup to install who they want.
Sure.
So even if anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism is very against what the US government represents right now, the fact that he wants to go to the US dollar is kind of a good thing for the US government, in a sense that it helps.
It protects him from the CIA a little bit. Hey?
Yes, and it helps the US government to export its inflation, because let's face it, the US government has been exporting inflation all around the world for 50 years. Yeah. And the people that didn't like it are often
Gaddafi,
Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy in Syria.
Those guys didn't turn out so well, did they?
No. And Putin. So if Javier Milei was probably aware that if he would have said, "Hey, I'm going on a gold standard," I'm not sure he would have been elected.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You raised another issue that I think is worth talking about too, and that is what happens now. Now we have this guy, this charismatic figure, saying all the right things, or mostly the right things. And he hasn't just been a flash in the pan either. I mean, he's been saying these things for decades, multiple times a week on national TV. He's educated an Argentinian populace. The more we learn about this guy, the more he seems like he has been carrying this message and knocking it out of the park with the Argentinian people for years and years. He's been basically Argentina's Ron Paul in a lot of ways. And Daniel was saying that if you talk to an Argentine cab driver, they understand the root causes of inflation and can talk about central banking and free market money and all the things that Austrians talk about, which is phenomenal. Now, now he is the leader of that country. He got himself into a position where he's the president of this country, and he's carrying that torch light and bright. Now the attention of the world's on him, not just the Argentinian people. So everyone that is looking to this philosophy called libertarianism to see, can it be successful? And if it's not successful, if there's not some meaningful, significant reforms that happen in Argentina, what does that say about the philosophy of liberty?
Exactly. That's a great question.
Yeah.
But this week I listened to a podcast from the Mises Institute, and they were asking that question. And so I didn't think about it by myself, but by listening to this podcast, I really understood that it was a very, very important question. And so what they said is that, okay, obviously Javier Milei gonna cut into the government, which we all love, but there's gonna be a reaction for that. Huh? The people that the left, the people that have jobs for the government, we know how they will react. And if they start,
and it's already happening. I saw an article today, Manuel. Argentina's Javier Milei faces airline privatization backlash. Unions oppose Thatcher-loving libertarians' plans to remove companies from state ownership. So here we have an airline that's owned by the state. Javier Milei is going to privatize it. And of course, the public sector unions are up in arms. So, and we have to understand this as well about Argentina, is that the reason it has 140% inflation is because government has grown so big. The public sector has grown so big. And so you have a huge public sector. You have a huge parasitic class that relies on the public sector. And as soon as that nectar, that milk is removed from the parasites, they're going to go crazy. And it's only been a couple days, and he's already facing huge backlash. So things are going to get interesting for him. So
if all those backlash, let's say those there may be strikes, people may stop working, they may break things, they may cause chaos, the economy, the productivity of the economy may go down. It's not going to help the economic situation. And the problem is that all those problems in the mind of most people will not be associated with the fact that the people broke things or stopped working. They will be associated wrongly with the libertarian principle.
Right.
That's what it said. And Stéphane Molyneux had already
I was just going to bring that up.
talked about it decades when I started to listen to him. I can just
because when Ron Paul came along, you're like, oh, here's a libertarian, we should support him, right?
Yeah.
Stéphane Molyneux's like, not so fast, bucko. That libertarian gets elected now, and we've already got this huge bubble blown up by the Fed, and all sorts of things start to collapse inevitably while Ron Paul's in power. What are they going to remember? A libertarian was at the helm when the central bank and all these banks collapsed. Yeah. And speaking of Ron Paul, one of our listeners here, Verisme, hope I didn't say that wrong, says Ron Paul did talk about him, Milei, with warning, I believe. So I don't know if he's warning Milei to be careful, to watch out for hot lead injections, or whether he's warning that Milei might not be the savior that everyone's making him out to be. But either way, it is interesting. Regardless, Manuel, he is the president, and it will be. I would rather have that than not, because now we're going to find out a bunch of things, right?
Oh, I fully agree with that, but I think that what we're discussing is also important. So
yes,
we're talking about the positive thing and the negative things.
And what I've been saying for years, Manuel, might be proven wrong, right? I've been saying for years that what we need is a cultural shift. That needs to happen first before political shift can happen. And maybe I'm actually being proven right by Milei, because he spent decades creating a cultural shift. I mean, if I could appear on national TV for 2 decades, 4 or 5 times a week, I might be able to get a bit of a cultural shift going too.
We're having a cultural shift here too. I think it's just not at the same speed, because we don't have yet the same rate of inflation than Argentina. Fair. I think
maybe it's our enemies that are creating that cultural shift more than us, right?
Yeah.
Daniel, thank you. Great conversation, guys. Appreciate that. Hey, guys, if you have anything you want us to specifically talk about outside of
please do
about current events, feel free to drop them in the comments here. We're going to talk about a few more things. Anything else you want to talk about with regards to this guy?
But I wanted to make an example here in Quebec. In 2012, the Liberal government wanted to raise the fees for university. Okay, Quebec, is it the word in English? Tuition.
Yeah, tuition.
Yeah, okay, sorry. The Quebec government wanted to raise the tuition fees in 2012. The tuition fees in Quebec were apparently the lowest in Canada.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah. So what happened? But the students started to demonstrate, to riot in the street. They blocked highways, they broke things in the universities, they stopped the course. It caused troubles. So what I want to say is that finally, the amount of money that the government was going to get by raising the fees, this amount of money was lower. It was a lower amount than what it cost in overtime for the police and all the trouble caused by the demonstration. Right. So the student that rioted and demonstrated costed more than what the government would have saved. So and I remember Stéphane Molyneux said, that's why statism doesn't work. I mean, and me at the time, I remember I was telling people, I understood the people that were unhappy that the tuition fees were going up, because I said, I'm going to give them a point, is that in Quebec, we're the place we pay the highest income tax. So I think in return, we should not have to pay more fees. I think inside the statist paradigm that made sense, but the solution was not that. The real solution would be to privatize the I was going to say the schools, which are indoctrination camps. And
Right.
you can believe me that governments owned university in Quebec are not really place that teach freedom,
Yeah.
So
Right. And we need to be careful about when we say privatize as well, right? Right now in Alberta, for example, the UCP is creating some healthcare reforms.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like they're decentralizing or breaking up AHS's monopoly on power, and they're decentralizing it a bit. Seems like a step in the right direction. But of course, the NDP and all the union acolytes are pushing back, saying, well, they're worried about privatization. And what they mean by privatization is something different. They don't mean legalizing healthcare and letting old Tim here start a community paramedic business serving clients. What they mean, although they're certainly opposed to that as well. I can only work for the government. What they're worried about is public funds going to a private entity. And I have to admit, I've got my own concerns about that. Sending someone to a private school or private clinic that is operating off government funds within a government framework is not likely to be that much better than government, if at all.
And it will anger the leftists, and they're gonna I think you said, you mentioned that in your previous podcast that I listened to. You were saying that, and it makes sense. And I would add also that in the paradigm that we live, let's say in Argentina, Xavier Milei privatized the airline. The problem is that who's going to buy them? But people that got rich,
right?
Probably by using the state. So it's not. I know nothing can be perfect, but the people will get angry, and I will understand that too myself. Hey, there's a billionaire gonna buy something that the government is privatizing, but he became billionaire by sleeping with the state. So
right.
But
the days of sleeping with the state are hopefully over, and when they buy it, they're gonna live and die on whether they can actually attract consenting dollars to their business, right? So now at least they're doing honest work, even if they got a head start by being a crony with the state. Okay, but speaking of Argentina, let's just switch gears a little bit here. Oh, someone's saying that my mic is too quiet. Let's see here if I can turn my mic up a little bit.
Is my mic okay? Because last time I had a live stream, when I had the reflex when I talk. Yeah. The problem is that maybe I tend to put my mouth close to it. Some of my friends made some joke about that. Steve, if he's ever listening. But
okay, I turned my mic up a little bit. Hopefully that's a little bit better.
From it.
Okay. Argentina is where a lot of Nazis fled, if I recall. Didn't Hitler supposedly flee to Argentina? Wasn't there a series about that? Isn't that what the conspiracy theory? Anyways, a lot of Nazis fled to South America, including Argentina. Segueing from that into a Nazi in Parliament. We had a Nazi in Parliament not too long ago, and I remember you reaching out to me saying, hey, we should talk about this. I didn't get a chance to then. Let's talk about it now, Manuel. What's the deal with this Nazi that was invited to Parliament? You sound like you have something to say about it.
Well, first of all, I think it was really funny when that happened. We got on social network a lot of funny memes about it. It also discredit, I think, the whole political class because they all applauded the guy. So it was funny. Now, for me, it raised a lot of question because what really happened? So I want to ask you, what do you think really happened?
Well, let me see if I can recall. He was a Polish guy, correct?
I think I'm not sure.
I think he was Polish, and he was fighting against the commies. or something like that. And the
He
people
was Ukrainian because
maybe that's right. He was Ukrainian, but he was fighting against the commies, right? And so the team that was fighting against the commies at the time were the Nazis.
exactly.
So, in one sense, the government was right. He was a freedom fighter for Ukraine. It's just that most of those freedom fighters happen to also lean Nazi a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think his family issued a statement saying, "Look, this guy fought for the freedom. Yeah, he joined with the army, but he didn't subscribe to their stinky beliefs or whatever. He was
we'll never know. We will never.
Yeah, we'll never know. We'll never know. But yeah, I mean, it creates all sorts of weird conundrums, right?
Yeah, but
because in this world, Manuel, everyone wants everything to be black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a good guy and a bad guy, and we're on the good guy side. Oh, he was a Nazi. Oh shit. And yeah, I mean, we've been calling all the people we hate Nazis for the last little while, and then we invite a literal Nazi to Parliament. Yeah, that has a certain level of irony. They were hoisted on their own petard, and I thought that was pretty funny as well. But
some people said that they lie that they lied about the fact that they didn't know. I'm pretty sure that I hate Justin Trudeau. I don't like really much more Pierre Poilievre. I think he's a lot more eloquent.
Yeah.
He speaks well. He presents himself a lot better than Trudeau. But I don't think that he can really do.
He's not going to save Canada?
No, I don't think so.
Well, here's what I think happened, Manuel. I think they had Zelensky come and visit, right? Mm-hmm. That was right around the time Zelensky was coming to visit. And they're like, you know what? We need to find us a Ukrainian freedom fighter. Who do we got? Who can we honor in front of Parliament and really show how pro-Ukrainian we are? Oh, this guy. I just think they jumped at it without really doing their due diligence. And
probably,
in their rush to virtue signal, they didn't.
Exactly. It's what I said. I made a post on social media, and it's exactly. But it's mostly what I said. So I'm pretty sure that every of those politicians would never wanted to associate themselves with a Nazi, because Nazis are still the best boogeyman possible to virtue signal. And so if people think that our politicians support a Nazi, I don't think so. It raises the question: did the guy who brought this old man, he knew that the guy fought against the Russian during World War II. Okay, I think it's obvious because it's the way they present the guy. He's a freedom fighter who fought against Russia during the Second World War, and now everybody in the Parliament applauds that.
Of course,
I cannot believe
who wouldn't applaud a freedom fighter. I
cannot believe that. The 300, how many of them are there in Parliament in Canada? 308?
338, I think.
338, okay.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that the 338 MPs in the Parliament didn't know that during World War II, the so-called good allies, you know why I say so-called? Because I'm myself a World War II revisionist. Right. I cannot believe that they didn't know that Russia was allied with Canada and the UK and US against Nazi Germany. I guess there may be a few of them didn't remember it clearly, or they just remember that.
I can actually believe it. I don't know that they were. I don't know if they are the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to history and things like that. I think they're very good at virtue signaling, very good at navigating the social political landscape and glad handing and gaining popularity. I don't think they're essential. I don't think they're the most well thought out. I don't think they have the most well thought out positions. Yeah. I don't think they've given 1 ounce of thought to political philosophy. They're simply navigating the landscape that's before them, that was put there by the people. because the people demanded this landscape. We want a big government. We want healthcare taken care of. We want our retirement taken care of. We want you to take care of us from cradle to the grave. We want you to protect us from a pandemic, protect us from foreigners, we've been begging the government to jackboot us for and this is what it looks like. And these guys are just really good at navigating that, and they're not the sharpest tools in the shed at anything else. Right.
That we agree. And it made them look crazy. But it raised for me one big question. Why people in Ukraine and even in Russia and in Eastern Europe during World War II, why so many people decided to fight on the side of the Nazis against the Soviet Union of Stalin? So can people answer? It's the question that nobody would dare to ask, and it's an issue that nobody really understands. So people are taught World War II was a good war because the Nazis were totally evil, and the rest, the Nazis and the Imperial and Japan imperialism were totally evil, but the rest of the world, who were imperialist power, colonial empires, and Stalin,
they did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. The nukes were fine. The firebombing address and all that was all fine. Manuel, let's shift. There is one thing I actually wanted to talk to you about before we wrap up, and that is Geert Wilders, a right-wing politician, recently won in the Netherlands. He became prime minister. I think they have prime ministers there. What is your take on this? We're seeing, we have Javier Milei, a populist leader in the south. Now we have the Geert Wilders, a populist in the Netherlands. Is this signaling something? Is this signaling a shift in culture or a shift in focus? And what does it mean?
I will say that I don't know. I know almost nothing about the politics of the Netherlands. I know that a so-called right-wing guy was elected. For me, when I hear right-wing versus left-wing in the media, usually when I hear right-wing, for me, it's just another flavor of statism. Yes. But now I understand why people vote for right-wing. It's mostly, I think, about the immigration issue. Do you agree?
Well, I think that may be true in some places. I'm not sure if that's the case in Netherlands. I think one of the biggest driving factors in the Netherlands is something similar to what we're dealing with in Canada. And that's actually what Mike Can brought up here. MPs can't do simple things, even though they portray what they do as complex. They could easily remove the carbon tax like most Canadians, but they don't do it. And I think that's true. But I think what we're seeing is a shift. And what has happened in Netherlands, there has been protests for a year or two because they were banning fertilizers on farm land. And this was going to basically decimate the farming industry there. We're seeing something similar. There's been talk about similar proposals in Canada to limit fertilizer or tax it or something as being bad for the environment. And so I think people have just had enough. It's like, this is ridiculous. In a environment of inflation and where things are unaffordable, you're making things even more unaffordable. And so I think what we're seeing, at least in the Netherlands and in Argentina and in Canada as well, is a push back against leftist economics and the environmental climate change agenda. And people are pushing back. And I think that's what's going to largely inform the next election in Canada. I know that a lot of populists worry about immigration. I'm not sure if that's at the top of everyone's list of what's their biggest concern right now in Canada. I think the biggest concern is probably affordability. Like our buying power has been shriveled up to nothing. And you've got this carbon tax as we go into the cold months. You're giving people in liberal ridings a break on their carbon tax, but you're punishing us out west. Fuck you.
Is it really what happened?
Yeah, man. Have you been watching the news? So in the Maritimes, they're given they're not carbon taxing home heating oil. Okay. Now, where is home heating oil prevalent? It's pretty much only liberal ridings. where everywhere else, like Western Canada, is heated by natural gas. And in Alberta, especially. And we're like, why can't we have affordable Why can't you make it affordable for us to survive as well, right? And so we're noticing that. A lot of Canadians are noticing that, and we are, and there's a huge pushback. I mean, this is why the Conservatives are way ahead in the polls, showing a substantial majority government right now if an election were to be called. Poilievre continues to do things that drive the left nuts and that they think are the nail in the coffin. I mean, the recent thing was that they're making a mountain out of is the explosion on the border there, U.S. Canada border. Did you see this? Where there was reports initially that it was terrorist, right? Yeah. We saw it in the news. Poilievre made hay with it in Parliament, saying there's a reported terrorist attack, and what is the Prime Minister doing, and blah blah blah. And now it turns out it wasn't a terrorist attack. And so, what's that?
I'm sorry. What happened? If it's
so the initial reports are a car driving the wrong way towards the U.S. Canada border exploded, killing 2 people. So it seemed like, seems reasonable to conclude it's a terrorist attack. But then later on, you saw the video of the thing, and the thing was flying at like Mach 10. It was going well over 100 miles an hour, hit a concrete barricade, launched, and then off camera, you see a big ball of flame coming. So this was obviously, it was probably like a suicide type deal, right? Where the guy, I've actually seen a few of those as a paramedic, a firefighter paramedic. There's been an uptick in those types of events. We recently had a stabbing in our community, pretty bad stabbing, and the perpetrator of that stabbing then took off at high speeds and purposely drove into a concrete abutment and killed himself. So, I mean, there's all sorts of strain on people, mental health and otherwise, because of various things, right? That's only being ramped up. So we're bound to see more of this. But the liberal media is painting Poilievre as a liar because a reporter called him out and said, hey, what is your reaction to being wrong about this? What do you have to say about that? And he was basically like, well, what did I say? I said there were reports that it was a terrorist attack. Did I lie? CTV, the Canadian press, all reported that it was reported as a terrorist attack. So they had to issue 3, right? And so my point is, I don't think Poilievre could do anything. I mean, I think he could literally run someone over right now and still get elected prime minister because people are just sick of what we've been dealing with. It's like anyone who promises some moderate relief from that is likely to win right now. And so I think that's what we're seeing right now is a huge backlash against big government, leftist big government. Now, of course, the worry is that we see this every few years, right? I mean, it goes in waves, right? It goes up and down. The countries veer left, and then they go right, and they wobble back and forth.
That's why
the state continues to grow. It seems the state continues to grow, and so that's part of the problem. And whatever your worst fear is, while you want the government to implement a program to deal with that anxiety, now it just so happens that carbon tax or climate change agenda, that luckily involves repealing some government and getting rid of some tax, hopefully. Although I'm not convinced that conservatives are totally going to abolish it. They're probably going to bring in some other scheme that is just going to let government grow at a slightly slower rate. Just like, it's like the immigration debate. I've said it numerous times on this podcast. I'm sympathetic. Yeah, I mean, I do think immigration is a problem. I think mass immigration is a problem. I think that there is something to be said about that. There's some legitimate gripes, but the root cause here is statism. It's the fact that you and I are forced into association with each other, even though I don't like you, Manuel, and I don't want to have any association with you. what you do and how you vote affects me.
Exactly.
And that's not right.
Exactly.
I shouldn't have that. I shouldn't have to pay for your education over there in Quebec, Manuel. I shouldn't have to spend all my tax dollars to pay for your highfalutin Quebecois lifestyle.
The worst thing about that is that Quebec, we don't have really a better lifestyle. We pay
right.
We pay a lot more income tax.
Right.
We have a lot more monopolies on many issues, on many things. Our waiting time in Quebec for in hospitals.
So what you're saying is my tax dollars are letting your corrupt, terrible system keeping it afloat. It's letting your government continue to tax you at a high rate and oppress you and still maintain solvency. You're welcome.
The Quebec government even took the gun registry from the garbage can of the federal government, and I don't know. I understand people of Alberta to be mad about the Quebec government, but
wow, I think we're mostly mad at the federal government. We're not really mad at the Quebec, but we use Quebec as the example of why we're mad. You keep taking our money and giving it to these guys. They're not doing a good job with it. We could do a better job with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Anything else, Manuel? Have we covered all the bases?
Yeah. Maybe I think I wanted to say about last thing about Xavier Milei. As I said, I love the guy. I'm happy he got elected. But as I think I told you, I used to be a Marxist.
Here's a question. Here's a question from a listener. Maybe we can address.
Yes.
Which situation would be better in your opinion, Tim and Manuel? Trudeau leaving office now or in October 2025?
I wish I could answer that. I think that the sooner he's out, emotionally, a lot of people that hates him is going to be happy because I think he's a hateable and despicable person. But the fact that but if he leaves office, will it be because there's an election, or will he be replaced by someone else?
Well, that's just it. I mean, and that's where you might play the devil's advocate and say it'd be better to hang on to him for a bit because his replacement might be more likable and more diplomatic or more appealing to the Canadian voters than Trudeau. We're all sick of Trudeau. Everyone is. So we're happy to vote him out. On the other hand, I will say that if we could get rid of the Liberal government right now, I think that would be huge. If somehow, if getting rid of him involved the general election, if we could get a general election called ASAP, I think that would be fantastic. I'm being pragmatic here. I see some positive reforms happening in Alberta. Okay. Danielle Smith is trying to exert some Alberta sovereignty. She is pushing on getting us out of the CPP and getting into our own provincial fund. Okay. It's not my own retirement fund. It's not my own money, but it's better than being lumped into the CPP, in my opinion. She's talking about our own police force, our own, she pushed back on even the plastic straw ban, and we just won a Supreme Court decision there. Things like that, Danielle Smith is putting in for. There's another thing too. She's engaging in healthcare reforms, and she'd be able to get a lot more done if some reform could be done at the federal level on the Canada Health Act. Ideally, if it were repealed. That currently is never going to happen. Like for healthcare to be legal in Canada, which is really what's required for a viable solution, legal healthcare. I need to be able to start a healthcare enterprise if you want more healthcare, right? But healthcare workers are prevented from doing that. It's illegal, and it's made illegal essentially by the Canada Health Act. So even if Danielle Smith wanted to, she couldn't. My point is, if we got rid of the Liberal government and implemented a conservative government, CPC, that's more amenable to working with premiers like Danielle Smith who want some more independence and autonomy, I think Albertans selfishly are more likely to get what we want in the right direction with a conservative government. So if we could call a general election, get rid of Justin Trudeau, I'd say call it today. Let's get rid of him. But if it's simply a change in leadership, I say let's hang on to Pony Boy, Little Potato for a while longer, and let Canadians really feel the pain of his administration, so that there's no doubt that he's going in 2025.
The pain of it's not just the pain of the administration of Trudeau, it's the pain of decades of statism, of central bank, of socialism,
Yes.
of all that. Fundamentally, I know that when, and I hope when Pierre Poilievre is going to be elected, it's going to be fun to see the reaction of the left, the media. They're going to say that there's a Nazi. They're going to stall. It's going to be fun to see that. But fundamentally, Pierre Poilievre is not going to do anything about the central bank, the debt. Is not gonna take us out of NATO. I don't think that we will have a full gun right. No, the fundamental problem will stay. So.
Sure, all the seeds of our destruction will still be there. He won't maybe water it as much, but he certainly won't hack at the root.
The woke bullshit will probably be less. It will be the woke agenda will be less.
But here's the thing, Manuel. I remember the 80s and 90s when the problem with the problem ideology that was against free speech and for prohibitions was the right wing. It was the conservatives that were against free speech. Yeah. They were the ones, and I mean, I could see that starting up again now. I mean, we see speech that's labeled anti-Semitism being banned on platforms. Who's pushing that?
Yes.
Who's pushing that? That's the right. The right is pushing that. So again, whether it's a left jackboot or a right jackboot makes no difference to me. They both have no problem using the state, and that is the problem. That's the fundamental existential crisis we must face, is that unless we get down to work striking the root of the problem, statism, the idea that we need an institution that uses violence to solve our problems. And that's what society ought to organize itself around. And that's what society ought to petition every time it has any anxiety or fear, is the guns of government. As long as we have that culture, we are going to be facing these existential threats over and over again. And so until we deal with this, we're not likely to see appreciable change. How's that for a way to
I totally agree.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to say about Xavier Milei, as you know, I used to be a Marxist before.
Oh, right.
Okay. And what attracted me in the libertarian philosophy is that it was anti-war. Hardcore libertarian, like at the time, Stéphane Molyneux or Lou Rockwell, they were openly anti-war. They were saying that wars are imperialist war, and I was like, wow! I thought that right-wing people were just pro-war. I thought libertarian were just a variant.
The right wing, yeah.
Hey, libertarians are against war.
Well, Javier Milei is branded a right-wing extremist, right? So he must be pro-war. He must be pro-jackboot.
Yeah,
but that's what they brand us as. Yeah. So it's no wonder you thought
I didn't talk against war. That's what a guy like Xavier Milei would not have converted me from a Marxist to a libertarian.
Right.
Ron Paul could have, Lou Rockwell could have, Stéphane Molyneux could have, but
that's a good point.
That's what I wanted to say about him.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of leftists that could be sympathetic to the libertarian ideal, especially the anti-imperialist, and the fact that we expose that billionaires don't become billionaires through the free market, but through the state. But now we have a guy that supports Ukraine and Israel, and
right. I gotcha.
I think
that's a really good point, and you're right. Ron Paul's anti-war messages seems to be what drawn him. And you remember, guys, Ron Paul was anti-war when that was very unpopular. I mean, post 9/11. If you weren't around for 9/11, it feels very similar to what you might have felt on October 8th after Hamas attacked Israel, right? The anger, the sheer lust for vengeance. That was times 1,000 what you saw with the Israel-Hamas thing. And that was the exact time when it was most important for libertarians to be principled and say, be anti-war. And we took flack then, didn't we, from the neocons and the conservative right. They were like, you don't support the troops. You don't support America. You don't support freedom. You're pro terrorist. You're pro this. You're blah, blah, blah. Who turned out to be right in the end? It was us. Because principles are pragmatic, as Ayn Rand said. And you don't attack people who are innocent, who didn't attack you, and expect to have good results. Anyways.
Recently, as I said, I was listening to a podcast from the Mises Institute, and they said that even today, again, Ron Paul, a lot of people said that they agree with Ron Paul, except on foreign policy. And some libertarian told me that the reason Ron Paul never got elected, but he got elected as a member of Congress, but that he never went further than that, it's because he's anti-war.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, you've got the whole military-industrial complex against you if you're anti-war, right? And yeah, that's not good. Okay, awesome. Well, listen, guys, thanks for hanging in there. This has been over an hour. Manuel, thank you for joining us and bringing your unique perspective to things. Hopefully, we don't get canceled. Haven't been canceled yet, but I'm positive if I have you on more, Manuel, one day I'll be canceled. So thanks again.
I got canceled, and I got quite a hard time in my relationship. I got some 30 years old friends that I didn't see them a lot, but decided to break with me because probably in part for my belief. Even my girlfriend broke with me recently, and it's in part because of my values. So there's many ways to be canceled. So.
I mean, maybe they did you a favor, right? Maybe that was a good filter mechanism to find out who really deserves to be in your life and who really cares about you, and or who's more important, cares about ideology. But anyways, Manuel, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles. You still got your boy here. I'm still your friend. Even if I disagree with you about some things, I don't know what I disagree with you on, but if I do, you're still my boy. So thank you guys out there listening. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to my Rumble page. Go to Rumble and find me. I'm trying to grow that page so that when Manuel eventually does get me canceled, I'll have a safe place to go. So thanks again. All right. See you later, guys.